Today, I want to talk about the 6 steps to find the right therapist for you. What's up? It's Peter, and if we haven't met, it's great to meet you. I'm an investment banker at Goldman Sachs, turned songwriter, turned content creator, living in San Francisco. And I've been in therapy for close to a year. Overall, I'd say therapy is definitely helping me become the best version of myself. For a lot of people, it's a black box and there's tons of options. Full disclosure, I'm not a mental health professional. This is based on my personal experience, what's worked for me and what I've seen work for others, and from talking to therapists and coaches. If you like this video, please click like so more people can see this. Please take what resonates with you, and I hope it helps. Step 1, write down what you want from therapy. What are your goals? How would you want to feel if therapy was successful? There can be so many different reasons and goals for it. For some people, it's improving their self-esteem, improving how they show up in relationships, healing from past traumas, healing from addiction, etc. There's so many different reasons. Step 2, write down your criteria for your ideal therapist. There are 3 big buckets you can look at. Bucket 1 is fit, how comfortable you are around them, how much you can relate with each other. Bucket 2 is their ability to help you meet your goals. And bucket 3 is around logistics. Do they have an opening available? Do the costs make sense for you? The following you can screen for before you schedule the consult call. In terms of fit, you can look at a lot of factors. Here's some of the key ones I would suggest starting with. For age, who would you be most comfortable with? Someone your age, more like a peer, someone younger, someone a few years older, like kind of like an older sibling vibe, or even older, like kind of a uncle, aunt vibe, or someone much older, like more of like a grandma vibe, wiser, etc. Who would you be most comfortable with? For me, I wanted someone that was older, but that could still relate to the issues I was going through. So someone in their 40s, 50s. In terms of gender, do you want to work with someone who identifies as female, male, non-binary, someone that has experience working with LGBTQ plus issues? For me, I wanted to work with a therapist that identified as female. I felt like I'd be more open with that type of energy. How important is ethnicity and cultural understanding for you? Some of my issues are cultural with my parents, generational. I definitely wanted to have an Asian American therapist so that I wouldn't have to talk about issues like filial piety, and I wouldn't have to explain a lot of these cultural norms. How important are religion and politics to you? If you have really strong religious or political beliefs, it might help if they have a similar background as you, so you again don't have to explain too much and you're on the same wavelength. You can relate easily. How important is their prior work experience or their understanding of your industry? For me, since I did investment banking and venture capital, but also have been a musician, ideally I was looking for someone that understood both of those worlds. For personality, how laid back and quiet do you want someone to be versus very bubbly and outgoing? Generally, you want to work with a specialist instead of a generalist. Here, you want to look at the goals you wrote down, whether you want to improve your self-esteem, relationships, etc. And then look at their specialties, and on their bios and websites, they'll list them. There'll be a lot of different methodologies that you'll see, like CBT, DDT, psychodynamic, somatic, etc. Generally, you don't have to worry about all the technical specialties unless you want to get into that. A well-trained therapist can cater their tools to your needs. For methodology, there's a spectrum. Where do you want to spend more time? Kind of the past or the present and future? Do you want to talk more about problems, or do you want to talk more about solutions, or maybe a mix of both? And so I wanted someone that was a little more laid back, that listened a little bit more, was more focused on the problems and my past. Because I had done some consults with coaches, and the people that were super prescriptive and just told me what to do, that wasn't really as much my vibe. But for some other people, that can be really helpful and just what you need. And if you want to read more about the specialties, I'll list some resources below in the description. In terms of credentials, I go off this Therapy Den article. They say that credentials and the school that a therapist went to doesn't matter as much. They say that because any licensed therapist is going to have at a minimum a master's degree, which is generally enough training. And so beyond that point, whether they have a master's or a doctorate, what's most important is the fit. How safe do you feel around them? How much do you trust them? How much do you open up around them? How much are they able to solve your specific issue? Bucket 3 is logistics. Do they have an opening available? A lot of therapists, especially if they're in high demand, don't have a slot open. Sometimes you have to wait weeks or months. And if they do have a slot, when are the openings and do they work with your schedule? Also, how much does it cost for a session with them? And generally sessions are about 15 minutes long. Look at your budget and ask yourself how much you can afford for therapy. Therapy can be really expensive, like say $150 to $200 a session, but it can also be more affordable, under $50 a session, or even $0 a session. So there are different options out there. And also just keep in mind, for any kind of material shifts, it'll take probably at least 3 to 6 months for you to see any shifts. So you can keep that in mind when you create your budget. Let's look at the different channels to find therapists. based on cost. In general, it's going to be a mix of going online and doing a lot of Google Kung Fu, making a lot of phone calls to your health insurance company, to therapists, and also just asking people in your network, like your friends, your family, people that have therapists. The lowest cost you could have is if your employer has an employee assistance program, an EAP program, like using a provider like Lyra. In this case, they would pay for your therapy and it would be billed directly to the provider. Go through your HR page to find it, or you can go to Lyra.com. Check your HR benefits to see if you have it. The next one would be through your health insurance if you find a therapist that's in network, meaning that the therapist takes your insurance. Depending on your insurance, your copay and your co-insurance, the amount you pay could range anywhere from $0 to $50 to $100. Call your insurance provider, and sometimes it's a mental health group, and then you ask them for a list of providers in your area and they'll send that to you. And you can also ask your primary care provider for referrals. Just make sure that they're in network. The pro is it's much more affordable. The con is they generally have less availability, and then you'll have just fewer therapists to choose from. If you can find the right therapist through in-network, this is also a great option. It just takes more work. Another lower cost option is to contact a health center or a mental health agency, or if you're in college or school, contact the counseling within your school. A lot of times you can find people that are training in grad school. The pros are they're learning cutting edge techniques and they have generally more time to focus on you, and they also have experienced supervisors. The cons are they may be less trained and it might be more hit or miss. If you want therapy within your budget, this is also a very good potential option. In the medium cost bucket, there's online therapy. So you can find a therapist through people like Talkspace and BetterHelp. And the process there is you go to their website and you fill out the profile of your background, what you're looking for, and then they'll match you with a therapist. The price there is roughly between $60 to $100 per week. The pros are it's more affordable. You can text and message them if you really enjoy that. It's convenient because it's all done via telehealth. The cons are they do the matching, so the quality of the therapist may be hit or miss. You can definitely find the right therapist here. It just may take some time and iteration. A heads up before you sign up, just search Talkspace or BetterHelp coupon, and you can generally get like $100 off or 10% off your first month, that type of thing. This can be a really good option if you match with the right therapist. In the higher cost bucket, now you have your out-of-network therapists. So these are basically therapists that do not take your health insurance, and sometimes can range anywhere from $100 to $200 per session, and sometimes more. In California, I would budget say $150 to $200. The two best places to find these therapists are going to Psychology Today. On the website, you can put in your criteria for your therapist, and then the results pop up. You'll see the different bios and their specialties, what insurance they take. Sometimes they write if they have availability. So this is a great way to see a lot of different therapists, and you can see who fits your style based on your criteria. The second way is to go on Google and do more specific searches. Ideally, you're being really specific for what you want. For example, you could search Asian American CBT therapist in San Francisco. One tip is if the geography and industry isn't as important for you, you can broaden your search outside of your local area. For example, I live in San Francisco and I started to search for people in Bakersfield, Redding, and I could do remote sessions. Ultimately, I decided to go with someone in the Bay Area because understanding the Silicon Valley kind of lifestyle was going to be really helpful. And if you like an out-of-network therapist, but you can't afford it, some of them will have a sliding scale where they reserve a few slots for sliding scale clients, and they'll ask you what you can afford and they'll try to work with you. I found these are hard to come by, but it is possible and it's definitely worth asking. Schedule the consult call. I'd recommend scheduling about 10 of these based off of all your previous screening. You can basically send an email out to everyone that introduces who you are and your goals for therapy, and you ask them if they're available to do a consult call in the next week or two. And you can also call a therapist if that's your thing. Finally, you'll have the intro, the consult call with them, and you're kind of interviewing each other to see if there's a fit to start working together. It's kind of like a first date where you talk about your background, what your goals are for therapy, and then they talk about their background and how they can help you with your goals. I would suggest doing about at least 3 to 5 of these, if not more. Kind of think of it like dating, and it just takes a few tries. There's no good or bad, but really it's just finding the right fit. Definitely ask whatever you feel is important for you. These are some general questions to get you started. Ask about their experience. Do they have experience treating the challenges that you want to work on? How many clients have they worked with on that? What was the outcome like? What's their specialty? What's their style in terms of how much they listen and sit back and let you figure things out versus how prescriptive they are, how solutions focused? How much will you be talking about the past and healing from past traumas versus how much will you be talking about the present or talking about the future, working towards your goals and solutions? What's their overall process like? What does the timing generally look like? How do they measure progress? What does a great outcome look like where you can end therapy? In terms of communication, is the communication mostly going to be done in session? Do they have space for answering emails, texts, or how responsive are they? When are those openings? Do they work with your schedule? In terms of payment, how does that work? Do they send the bill to the insurance company, or do you pay out of pocket and then you send it to the insurance company? After the consult, a few key questions to ask yourself are, how do I feel overall? Do I feel like they really got me? Do I feel like they're really listening and I don't feel judged? Do I feel safe? Do I trust them? The more I talk to them, do I close up or do I open up? I hope that helps you find the right therapist for you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll try to answer them. If you have any advice for others in the channel, definitely let us know in the comments too. And if you want to get more content like this, definitely click subscribe. Good luck finding the right therapist. I'm super excited for you, and I will see you next time. Whoa.